I'm Simge Küçükyavuz. I'm the chair of the Industrial Engineering and Management Sciences Department at Northwestern University. We're very excited today to share how our programs capture the spirit of the UPS George Smith Prize by bridging academia and industry. To tell our story, I invited Mike Watson. I think he's the ideal person to present our programs. He has a PhD from our department, and then he went on and built a successful business. Then he sold his company, and we wanted to hire him as a faculty member to lead our undergraduate capstone project. We call that Client Project Challenge. But he has also been involved with our master's programs. We have two master's programs, Masters of Engineering Management and Masters of Machine Learning and Data Science. So he's intimately familiar with all of our programs, so we'll be reviewing all of them. We're joined today also by our students who will present their perspectives, and also our Associate Chair, Jill Wilson, and Deputy Director of our Masters of Machine Learning and Data Science program.
So here's the agenda today. As Simge mentioned, I'm going to do the first part of this, cover the program. We'll have a short video from alums, and then you'll hear from our students as well. So I'm going to start with who we are. Who is IEMS at Northwestern? What do we mean when we say that? We have 4 different programs under the IEMS umbrella. We have the undergraduate program, so that's BSIE. So the idea with this program is give a broad-based grounding in OR and analytics for a range of industries. One thing to note, Northwestern, even though we have a famous brain with Kellogg, we don't have an undergrad business degree, so we need a broad range here in industrial engineering to cover that. Our PhD program is meant to break new ground, create new knowledge, that kind of thing. And what that does is prepares our students for sort of the most cutting edge type of jobs in the field. And then our Masters in Machine Learning and Data Science, so MLDS is what we'll call that. This basically focuses on training the next generation of data scientists. Our MEM program, this focuses on filling the niche of preparing professional engineers to be engineering managers. So those are the 4 programs. Our focus in each of these programs is to bring basically high quality, high touch, and academic rigor to each. And you can see both the undergrad and PhD programs are highly ranked. The MLDS program in analytics, this was founded in 2012, kind of right at the start of the analytics movement, built from the ground up. So we didn't just rebrand the department. We sort of built this for purpose. And then our Masters of Engineering Management was also a pioneer in the space, realizing that there was a gap in training people to be managers of engineering. So those are the programs. It all sits under one faculty. So a single faculty goes across each of these different programs. The people circled are the heads of each of the different programs, but they're all in the faculty. And what that means is that each of our faculty members teaches at least in the undergrad program, and then likely in 1 or 2 of the other programs. So we have that sort of cross-pollination going on. And this also, having multiple programs under one roof allows us to do a lot of nice things. For example, having the strong PhD program let us build the MLDS program from the ground up. So we were sort of already researching these techniques and realized when 2012 rolled around that, this was going to be an exciting new field, and let's create this program. We had that bench strength to do that. Once we saw MLDS being successful, so those early classes were very successful, and having this all under one roof let us do another thing. It let us say, let's get these classes into the undergrad program. Let's get these classes into the MEM program. So let's start filtering that knowledge, what we're learning from that program into the other ones. The strong MEM tradition, the fact that we've been doing MEM for a long time, what this has helped us do is it helps us bring this management and leadership classes to our undergrads and spills over to the MLDS as well. We cross-list a lot of courses, so students will be in classes that have people from different programs. And then the students also have options if they, depending on what their career goals are, might have an undergrad degree and then decide they want to be more of a hardcore data scientist and go into the MLDS program. So it gives flexibility there. A little bit about Northwestern and how we think about OR. So OR in advanced analytics is kind of the core of what we do. The chart on the right, this shows sort of how we think about the virtuous cycle of IEMS across all the programs. Kind of starts with decisions that make some kind of impact that sit within a system. And so this circle is sort of how we think about it. And the different programs will emphasize little, different parts of this, but that's the view. And then on the left, what you can see is this is core OR, advanced analytics type of techniques. The 3 methodologies that are the pillars, the ones you'd expect: optimization, machine learning, and then decision making under uncertainty. And then the systems that go across from left to right are the different industries that we serve. So we have a variety of different industries that we look at. Then let's talk about our faculty's role. So what role does the faculty play in sort of helping prepare our students to be good practitioners? And the first one I want to highlight is that as a department, we've long viewed that having someone on staff who has significant industry experience and significant leadership experience is very helpful for the students, giving students access to those kind of people. The first one I put up here is Don Fry. So Don Fry was a professor from 1988 to 2005. We kind of learned this lesson when he was on the faculty. He was a key executive at Ford Motor. He's credited with a few others with designing the Mustang. So that's a picture of him with Lee Iacocca in one of the early Mustangs. He then went on to be a CEO of Bell and Howell. He was a professor when I was there. So Simge mentioned I'm an alum of the program. He was a professor when I was there, and it was very valuable to have someone like that to talk to, like someone who was at those levels of a company, and kind of inspired me to, think bigger about what I could possibly do after I left Northwestern. Followed on that is Bill White. So he came in as a professor. He just recently retired, also CEO of Bell and Howell from 1988 to 2003. And then currently on the staff too is we have Mark Werrath. So he is a director of the MEM program, perfect person to direct that program. He's like 30 plus years of experience, executive management experience, doing program management, operations management. Yuri, who's with us here today, he's co-director of the MLDS program. He also has about 30 plus years of experience, and his experience is in the financial engineering side, doing high-speed trading, risk analysis, that kind of thing for a variety of companies, including Bank of America. And Simge kind of gave you who I was. The other thing is, so we have professors that have the full-time work experience, but all our professors have this desire to sort of bring industry into the classroom to make our students ready to be practitioners. And just here's a few examples. So we have someone working on the question of how do you create high functioning teams that can you can stick them in a ship going to Mars and they'll get along for the long duration in a small space. We have standard kind of problems where you take operations problems like at Ford and GE, but also applying those same techniques at companies like Facebook. Jorge was just recently interviewed on the Subject 2 podcast, and they asked him a question like, what was his biggest impact on industry? I thought he was going to say his work in nonlinear solvers, but instead he said, well, it's probably a big long-term weather forecasting project he worked on with the team in Europe. And the reason he said that is he said, well, everyone looks at the long-term weather forecast to make their plans. He said, that's probably impacting and touching more people than some of the industrial applications that I did. We've worked on looking at counterfeit drugs in the pharmaceutical supply chain, and then all the way down to things like how do we design better transplant systems for kidneys. So we take all this kind of stuff, try to bring it into the classroom. We also have deep expertise in the field of OR. So a lot of our faculty members are recognized. So here's some snapshots of people who are fellows of professional societies like Informs or National Academy of Engineers. And then on top of that, sort of, what makes it all work too is bringing the industry problems, bringing the expertise in the space is that we have a strong culture of teaching. And so these are some circles of people who've won either a school-wide award or some kind of national award for their ability to teach. The other thing we do with teaching is we make sure, I think we said this, we make sure, all our faculty teach all the students. And in fact, we try to have the senior core faculty members teach some of the core classes. So almost every student will get to see senior level faculty members. All right, now I want to go through each of the different programs and talk about what's innovative with each of those different programs. So I'll start with the undergrads. So if you look at our curriculum, we on the left we have the required classes, and at the top this is kind of the core OR with probability statistics, machine learning, optimization in there, simulation. And I wanted to point out on this one too is that we don't just use the standard stats and probability course that is taught in other places at Northwestern, like in the stats department or somewhere else. We have our own version of that brings in decision making. So we have this focus on how do we teach this class in the context of making decisions. We have some computational classes that we require. And then on the right, this is where we have our broad levels of specializations because we have students who are going to go into lots of different industries. And so we need to give them choices of how they want to manage their careers. Other thing we offer, might have forgot to mention this earlier, is we have a minor in machine learning. So this sits under our undergrad program. Again, so this is inspired by the success we saw in the master's version of this. And again, to be broad-based and high touch and serve our students, we have different tracks. So the track on the top, if you want this minor, is the data science track, and the track below is the machine learning track. Kind of a variety of classes in each of those, and a hybrid in the middle. And then Simgay mentioned the capstone projects. We think this, our capstone class, and we call this Client Project Challenge. And this is one of the reasons that I decided to come join Northwestern. Is I could see when I was talking to them, there was a love of the faculty of, like, they really wanted this class to be successful, and they really wanted to set it up for success. They worked really hard to sort of design it, and they thought, and I thought, like, I could make a nice impact on this. It mirrored a lot of the things that I did in industry, and I could bring that to the class. You can see some of the companies that they worked with. So they had laid the groundwork. And what I think is unique about the capstone project is there's like three things that stand out. So the first is that we run it junior year. So Northwestern, we sit on a quarter system. And so we have 2 quarters after the winter break. And we just started off another project just right now. And we have juniors in that class. And the way we got this idea is that from our advisory board, and this quote highlights it, is if we do it junior year, the students can use that experience in their internship junior year, and then use it in their job search in the fall when they come back from that internship. So we do that. I think it brings a lot of energy to the projects as well. We have the students lead, so it's a student-led kind of thing. So once the projects start, no faculty member talks to the clients. It's all in the hands of the students. And then we embed a writing instructor to help the students think through and articulate the great things that they're doing in this class. Here's some kind of proof that of the success of the program. So this is a quote from the CEO of a large bus company. They have about 6,000 buses that serve school districts. We worked on a project that cut processing time of some process from 18 hours to 2 hours, and they're investing more resources to sort of make that stick. And then a quote from Coca-Cola Consolidated, the biggest Coke bottler in the system, looking at commenting on the fact that, like, we use AI and automation to come up with a low-touch solution to automate some things. And then finally, we're happy to win this prize. So Industrial and Systems Engineer Society hosts annual capstone contest at their annual conference, and we came in first place last year, so we're excited about that. Besides the academics, we also try to connect our students with alums. So this is our Mentoring Matters program. So we have a nice alum data set of alums who are willing to talk to the students, and they can find the appropriate alum and then make the connections. And so that's also an important part of our preparation for students. And then where do students go? So this is a study we looked on LinkedIn just to find people who had graduated from IEMS and find out where they ended up going. So you can see on the left, we have the places with multiple alums. I think it's always a good sign that companies who are willing to hire lots of our students. So you see a mix of financial companies, some operational companies, consulting companies, et cetera. And then on the right, just a list of others. So it's kind of a wide range of firms that our students end up working for. And then as we looked at their career titles over time, we saw a nice progression that as their students progressed through their careers, their titles went with that. Looking at the PhD program. So the PhD program, classic classes you'd think for foundational OR and advanced analytics. So you can see the optimization, stochastic processes, et cetera. But I think what's unique also about the program is we're willing to continually update the curriculum to keep on top of things. Here is a list of the classes that we offered in 2026 or 2025-26, this academic year. You can see the classes that you'd expect: Gen AI, algorithms of LLMs, and being able to teach these classes, the professors can then take that knowledge to the other programs as well. So it's a way to, show what the latest is and then disseminate that information. Again, with the PhDs, so we found about 95 alums from 2015 to 2025. 50% of those, the 50% with industry jobs, where did they end up? So they ended up at this list of companies. But what I want to highlight is that we think we're training our PhD students to work at sort of the companies that are demanding the most, the companies that are demanding the most of their, from the technology being on the cutting edge. And we kind of see that with some of the data if we just eyeball it. And like the undergrads, we see the PhDs after they leave our program, they have a nice career progression in their titles as well. MLDS. So this is our analytics, Masters in Machine Learning and Data Science program. I want to highlight what's different about this with an email. I think this email is a fun way to do it. I dug up this email to show you. So this email was from Diego, and Diego runs the program. He's the founder of it, and he runs the program along with Yuri now. But this email came out in early February 2023, 64 days after ChatGPT. So basically, if we go back in time, most schools were trying to figure out, like, what is this? How do we ban it? What's going on? And this was Diego's email to our team, our faculty team. he said, I've had a complete change of heart. Let's embrace this thing. Like, we have to embrace it. And in fact, let's not just embrace it. Let's teach the students how to use it. Like, let's embed this right into the program. And I think what this shows is like his willingness and the willingness of the program to adapt to things, to new technologies as they pop up. And then later on the email, he gives the reason why. He's like, we want our students to be more employable and more productive. And I think this is also a part of the program. And I've been teaching this program since it started. And this is definitely how we think about it. It's like, what skills do we need to give our students so they're as employable as possible? The curriculum MLDS, basically, like, the way you want to think about it is how do we make the next generation of data scientists? That's what we're thinking about. But we also want to be very connected to industry. So we connect industry with industry tools. You'll hear about that from one of the students. But also we have the students working with industry the whole time they're in the program. So it's 4-quarter system, 1 academic year, and then 1 other quarter. And the whole time they're doing a project. So the first 9 months they're working on a practicum, which is just basically a 9-month capstone. And then they have a more traditional 1-quarter capstone at the end with an internship in the middle. So we keep the students sort of engaged with industry. Here's the courses. And as you look at the courses, it's kind of what you'd expect and what we think companies would expect from this generation of data scientists. Like, what things do they need to know? And if we think about the curriculum, it's like, you think about this space, it's like you can't sit still in this kind of program, and we haven't. So we change and update the curriculum every year. So if you think when we started, we kind of had a base of like where we were in 2012 with what did analytics mean, and pretty quickly we had to make core changes of the program. So in 2012, it wasn't clear. Was it going to be Java, Python, R? There was, kind of a debate then. By 2015, we kind of seen that, like, looks like Python's going to be the way to go. So Python became a sort of a core approach, or a core technology that we used. 2017, same thing with deep learning. Once we saw this, we're like, let's embed this into the core, make sure all our students know it. Cloud computing followed along, text analytics as well. And then, even today, it's, Gen AI is like a critical part of the core. So keep that up to date. Where do our alums end up? So we did a program started, first graduating class 2013. So that's a list of where our students ended up. And you just do an eyeball view of this. It's like, this looks like companies that want the next generation of data scientists. It has that feel to it. And I also thought it was interesting that a lot of the companies in here, or a lot of our students, when you look at their title, they still have data science, some version of data science in their title, even graduated a while ago. And I think that tells me that we've done a good job of training these students to have a career in the field of data science. And we see some progression with these students as well as they progress in their career. All right, the last one I want to talk about is MEM. So MEM, if you look at the curriculum of MEM, it has a lot of influence, especially if you look at the stuff on the right, a lot of influence from the industrial engineering department. So there's supply chain classes, there's operations classes, things like that. But I want to focus on the core. So the core is what you'd expect engineering managers to learn. So the sort of the basics of that. But I want to highlight 2 things. I want to highlight our cornerstone and our capstone. So our cornerstone, the first class that students take, this is a business simulation. It's run by a company called Prism. So they have faculty come in and teach this class, where students are exposed to a real world business simulation. And it's not just one for academic settings. So Prism does basically, their main job is to train executives at different companies. There's a list of different companies that they train. So our students are basically getting the same training that, you can see a wide range of companies here: insurance executives at defense contractors, executives at manufacturing companies, distributors, etc. Then on the other end of the program, we have 2 versions of the capstone. So one is we have a lot of students who want to be product managers. So we have Mark, who heads up our MEM program, co-teaches it with Karthik, who's a graduate of the program. And Karthik has spent 30 years working in new product development in the healthcare space. And then our other capstone, which is a long-running capstone, at least 20 years, is Don McNeely. He's a CEO of a large steel company in the Chicago area. So students get to learn about engineering management from someone who's actually, managing a fairly complicated steel business in the Chicagoland area. We have a lot of on-ramps for our students. So in the MEM program, we are co-founders of a consortium of other schools with an MEM program, so our students interact there. The picture in the middle, I know it's hard to see the people. This was the CEO of Shure, which is a microphone company. So she came in to talk. She's also an alum of the MEM program. And then we have some executives and residents who have some energy experience, so get students exposed to that. And then the big event of the year for MEM is this industry night, where we have one night where we bring in alums, people from industry, students, have a keynote speaker. And I highlighted 2023. I think we had an interesting speaker that year. So Christina Kosmowski. She was an alum of IEMS, so she graduated from IEMS. She was an early employee of Salesforce, early employee of Slack. So this is how we want all our students to have their careers. And then she is now the CEO of Logic Monitor. And just did a quick look up, and they $2.4 billion valuation, so a large tech company in the Bay Area. Placements. So these students tend to go a little more larger companies, but similar kinds of logos here. We see some career progression, but we also see students starting out with nice titles when they leave the program, which makes sense. They're engineering professionals, and they've they're looking to get those titles and those kind of responsibilities after the program. Okay, so that's sort of an overview of our programs. I want to turn it. I'm going to turn it over and let a video run to hear from some of our alumni, and then we're going to have the students come up.
IEMS had a massive impact on my career path and enabled me to hit the ground running.
What I learned there not only was the technical skills that I was looking for, but also building a network of people in this field.
The classes that I look back most fondly on were the ones that were project-based. The senior design project was incredibly important. And so you would have a real-world problem that a company was actually working on and be able to go in and figure out a solution.
On a daily basis, we're running sensitivity analyses and simulating changes, and that course really prepared me for the day-to-day, whether it's making adjustments to consumer demand, adapting to macroeconomic factors, or simply running a risk assessment of what if we did this.
I had loved the simulation course at Northwestern, sent an email to Professor Nelson and basically said, hey, do they use this in the real world? He had received an email that Rockwell was looking to hire a simulation consultant. So he connected me. That's how I ended up at Rockwell and working directly with the simulation product and using the skills I learned at Northwestern to go solve real world problems.
Just a few weeks ago, I was in a meeting where I had to use a concept that I learned in one of my Northwestern classes, predictive analytics. We were working on a machine learning model to predict customer demand. A question was asked, how are we going to assess model performance? And I could go back to 10 years ago, a course where this concept was explained again and again. I was able to bring back that memory from so long ago and answer the question on the spot in a way that everyone in the room could understand because of how I had learned it.
Bill White spoke about the importance of ethics, the importance of being diligent and bringing your best self to the office every day. Some of the things that he mentioned in those lectures are things that I still think about today. IEMS, the faculty there is on the cutting edge. They always want to be thinking about the future and how what they're seeing in their research can be brought into the educational paradigm.
So that was the alums, and I'll just have one thing before the students. So we have a very strong community. We do a variety of events, which I think builds community among the undergrads, which also creates this nice committed alum base that's willing to give back and sort of help the next generation of students become successful practitioners. And so with that, I want to let you hear from the students.
So the Northwestern IEMS PhD program gave me the skill set to be a leading data scientist from day one. Last summer, I got to intern for United Airlines as a PhD intern. Even as an intern, I was actually the one leading several time series forecasting projects, developing models from the ground zero for important time series analysis tasks like forecasting cash flow for fuel payments and predicting customer demand on the booking portal. And not only was I developing them from scratch and being a contributing member of the team, I was actually the one toward the end of my internship presenting these models to the business teams that would be using these models. And I was very comfortable leading these projects thanks to the training that I had in the PhD program at Northwestern.
I'd like to stress how IEMS prepared me for the toughest industry job. At IEMS, we're always grounding our work in real industry applications. So IEMS helped me get an internship at McDonald's working on the digital promo recommendation machine for the global pricing. I also later interned at Amazon with Phil Kaminsky, and I was a Luminous and Influence Fellow on tractor portfolio management. So all these problems I encountered in my internship were hard and very different from each other. But the training at IMS helped me adapt and learn new domains very quickly and solve unfamiliar problems with confidence. So this summer, I'll be joining Amazon as a blind scientist at the pricing systems team. And I believe that IMS has prepared me extremely well for my industry career. Thank you.
So I'd like to emphasize how joining MLDS in the middle of my career has not felt like a pause at all. I worked for 4 years as a data analyst, and MLDS is allowing me to continue getting industry experience while exposing me to cutting edge tools and methods. So MLDS started pretty fast with its connections to industry. In our very first quarter, in addition to taking classes in Python and machine learning methods, we're also using LLMs and tools like GitHub, Docker, and Airflow embedded as part of our workflows, which feels pretty unique compared to other programs. And additionally, we have a three-quarter-long practicum program where we're paired with real company projects based on our interests. My practicum advisor is someone who not only shares technical papers with me to read, but also gives me practical advice on thinking carefully about the long-term maintenance and costs of any models I make, which is very valuable. Overall, through MLDS, I feel like I'm getting both the scientific rigor and industry practicality to jump right back into my career after graduating.
The operation research courses have been incredibly helpful in not just my internship experience, but in also securing my full-time role at Bank of America. Specifically, the optimization and operation courses really taught me how to break down complex problems, evaluate trade-offs, and make data-driven decisions. In my interviews at Bank of America, I walked through how I would identify bottlenecks, measure inefficiencies with metrics like throughput and flow time, and connect those insights to practical improvements. I truly believe that these operation courses really allowed me to find success in this. In my internship at Ameriprise, I worked on a project where I helped a financial advising team reorganize client portfolios by analyzing asset allocation and liquidity needs. And this really allowed us to identify inconsistencies and reallocate time and attention needs across clients. Overall, I really just want to stress how much I really enjoyed, and it was so exciting to me being able to apply the tools I learned from class directly in professional settings.
I would like to highlight the management sciences courses. Specifically for me, these include organizational behavior and project management. These ensure that we not only have the technical problem-solving skills that we need to do engineering work, but they also make sure that we know how to communicate effectively, which is so needed in industry. For me in tech sales, a lot of my job is knowing how to correctly convey my ideas to a specific technical brand of audience. This can include building owners, building management, engineers, contractors, a very wide variety, and these management science classes help prepare me for how to talk to specific individuals. This toolkit of both problem-solving skills and communication skills, it greatly prepares us for industry and has greatly prepared me for my client-facing role.
I'd like to highlight how the MLDS minors helped prepare me to be successful in my past 2 internships, one at a chemical manufacturing company and another working as a financial data analyst. So in these courses, we learned Python, SQL, and R, but what's really stood out to me is that we don't just learn these tools at a basic level. We're taught to use them to really problem solve and test our thinking. And for example, we might be assigned a project where we start with cleaning the data and doing exploratory analysis, but then we end with a prototype or business recommendation. So I've put this to use in my current internship. Within the first few weeks, I was able to understand the data intake process and write code to automate processes that my teams didn't really know how to improve or even approach beforehand, turning a 10-minute process into just a few clicks.
The student-led client project challenge gave me confidence in my abilities and showed that I could apply the skills that I've learned into the classroom to solve a real-world problem. My team partnered with the Evanston Animal Shelter, and our goal was to help build better schedules for volunteers. We wanted to maximize the amount of time that dogs and volunteers could spend with each other while ensuring that we were maintaining safety and operational efficiency. Now, safety may not sound all that important, but early on in our project, a volunteer was bitten and hospitalized due to a blind spot. And this highlighted that our approach needed to minimize potential blind spot encounters. Our solution used a linear program to identify bottlenecks and to develop a cleaning and walking schedule that could adapt to different numbers of dogs and volunteers. At the end of our project, it was incredibly rewarding to have led client interactions and developed this solution all on our own. We weren't just completing another assignment, it was a real-world problem with real impact. And this experience strengthened my ability to take ownership and work through challenges as they arise, and it genuinely made me excited to have the opportunity to apply these skills after graduation.
I'd like to also emphasize the value of the junior year capstone, as well as alumni networking opportunities. So for my capstone, I worked with a leading technology manufacturer to analyze and reduce indirect procurement spending. Now, our solution used BERT as well as a locally run large language model. It was my first experience using both of these. So the real world pressure taught me to translate these technical solutions into business stories. And these skills really paid off in my interviews senior year, because I was able to use these technical communication skills in my final interview with IBM when I was asked to present a demo of a technical piece of software. Now, secondly, the networking opportunities throughout IMS were incredibly valuable. I remain close with my capstone client today, but in addition, IMS has paired me with alumni mentors from companies such as Google, Capital One, and United Airlines, helping me discover what excited me, what did not, and most importantly, how to maintain professional relationships that continue even past graduation.
All right. So you've just heard from the students. I think they did a great job summarizing some of the highlights of the program. And I'll just wrap it up real quick on how we help our students become great practitioners. We have a curriculum that keeps up, so we're keeping up with the latest of what companies want in the field. We have this unique capstone experience, both the one you just heard about and you heard from Aru too, the 9-month practicum followed by the capstone. So we think we're unique there in keeping our students close to industry. We have faculty experience who loves working on industry problems, brings that into the classroom through teaching and interaction with lots of students. And finally, this focus, in which I appreciate being part of IEMS, is we have this great focus on maintaining high quality, have a high touch. So we all faculty members get to interact with lots of students in different ways, and then keeping the academic rigor with the programs as well. So with that, thank you, and we'll open it up for Q&A.